For anyone who is just logged in, we are just going to give a few minutes for people to sign in, and we'll get started in a few minutes.
Good morning, everyone. What's fun, Kelly, is watching the participant number grow, right? See, we're at 25,
oh, yeah.
27.
No, don't tell people. You got to say like 6,008.
Oh, well, we'll get there, Kelly.
Okay.
Greg, I know Greg very well. Good to see you, Greg. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Good morning. You have to get one of these, Kelly, for virtual meetings. These are awesome. You use them to vote with. You can say you're on mute. You can, all sorts of.
Okay, I'll invest in one. Well, it's 9 o'clock. I can get started here. Hello and welcome to our webinar, Leading and Laughing in Turbulent Times. And happy St. Patrick's Day. Hopefully you have a good beverage. I have a shamrock shake, unfortunately not an Irish coffee. I'm not sure what you're drinking, Mike. Does it?
I have, yes, I'm drinking Irish coffee, and I have my You're on Mute mug on. Oh. Another essential tool during these times.
My name is Kelly Backey, and I am the senior content writer here at Thought Farmer. If you are unfamiliar with Thought Farmer, we build internet software that helps organizations improve their internal communication, collaboration, and knowledge share. And we also help organizations engage and unite their employees, which is so critical as many of us are entering the second year of working remotely. But on a much lighter note, we have an amazing guest speaker today, Mike Kerr. Mike is a Hall of Fame speaker who in ordinary times travels the world researching, writing, and speaking about inspiring workplaces that rock and businesses that leverage their humor resources to drive outrageous results. Mike's ideas on building inspiring workplaces have been featured in hundreds of publications worldwide, while his Inspiring Workplaces blog has been listed as one of the top 30 workplace blogs in the world. Mike is also the author of 8 books, including The Humor Advantage, Why Some Businesses Are Laughing All the Way to the Bank, and the brand spanking new The Jerk-Free Workplace, How You Can Take the Lead to Create a Happier, More Inspiring Workplace. But before I pass it over to Mike, I wanted to get the audience engaged and warmed up in conversation. So if you could type in the chat box, hopefully you can find the chat box, but hopefully if you can type something in and let us know what TV show you are currently watching that is making you laugh, because today is all about humor. So I would love some suggestions.
And do make sure, everyone, that you change the tab so that it's to all panelists and attendees, not just to the panelists. Oh, there's some good ones, Kelly. Some of my favorites, yeah. Parks and Rec, we're doing right now.
Okay.
Schitt's Creek and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Those have been my 3 favorite, I think.
Wow. I need to watch some of these. I unfortunately
Working Moms
have not seen most of these.
Superstore. What's your favorite, Kelly?
I like Family Guy.
Oh yeah, Family Guy's very good. I haven't seen it in ages.
Sort of like a routine every Sunday night to watch Family Guy.
Ted Lasso was supposed to be very good.
I'm seeing a lot of Parks and Rec, Modern Family, Resident Alien. I've not heard of that.
Catastrophe is very good too. That was brilliant. There's so, Kelly, when we started the pandemic 8,493 days ago, my wife made me agree to this pact. She said, I don't want to end the day with news or stressful crime shows. Let's end every day with a comedy. And so we've stuck to that for over a year.
That is very good advice, because I think when the pandemic started, I was watching Chernobyl, which was not very uplifting at all. But I just saw someone type Seinfeld. Mike and I were just talking about how Seinfeld is our favorite comedian. I
Dr.
love situational humor. Big Bang Theory, love Big Bang Theory.
Bazinga.
Awesome.
Awesome.
So Mike, I'm going to pass over control to you, or maybe you just take control and you can do your thing.
Okay, I will do my thing. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for that introduction. And thank you to Thought Farmer for hosting this event. And thank you all to being here, for showing up. It's an amazing turnout. So welcome, everybody. How are you doing? On a scale of, where's my little handheld sign? On a scale of 9 to 10, how is everyone doing this morning? I hope you're at least a 9 out of 10 on this beautiful Wednesday, March 17th. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm not wearing green the way the lovely Kelly is, but I do have my very dorky Kiss Me, I'm Irish hat. So top of the, I sound like a pirate. I cannot do accents, folks. Top of the morning to you all. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Happy Campfire Day, it is also. And it is also Small Business Development Day. So whatever you participate in today, I hope it is a great day. I hope you are doing well and you are safe and healthy during these unprecedented times since it is St. Patrick's Day. And I've got my You're on Mute coffee mug here. I think we should do a drinking game. Now, I know it's early for most of us, so I don't know what you're drinking, but whether you have coffee or water or just a refreshing beverage of your choice, anytime I say the word laughter, leading, or leprechaun, in honor of St. Patrick's Day, please take a big exaggerated sip wherever you are, and we can drink together alone, or drink alone together, whatever the case may be. Do you know, Kelly, by the way, why leprechauns are hard to get along with?
No.
Because they're very short-tempered. So bad, so bad. I should just let myself out of this Zoom room right now. So it is so good to not see everybody. Welcome again. As I kiddingly said earlier, it's like what, day 17,000 of the pandemic. It feels like we're living in dog years right now. Time just seems to have no essence. But boy, has it been a learning experience the last year for me, and I hope for everyone. And what a great reminder, when we have challenging, turbulent times like this, do we ever need to be more intentional about stepping up as leaders, which to me just means reminding ourselves that everybody has the capacity to lead. As I talk about in my latest book, that leadership has nothing to do with position or power or job title. It's about who you are. It's about your character. It's about your ability to influence the people around you positively, whether that's your friends and families or the people you work with. Everybody has the capacity to be a leader. It's about building relationships, building trust. It's about connecting with people at just a fundamentally human level. And has that never been more important than right now, to put people first? You know, nobody wants to be managed. I don't know if you've ever tried to manage your spouse. That's a really good way of finding out how comfortable your couch is or isn't. Nobody wants to be managed, but people do want to be led. So when we have these challenging times, it's a great opportunity for all of us to step up as leaders just a little bit more. And part of that means being an effective leader, in my mind, being an inspiring leader, also means, yes, leading with laughter. It is one of the most important tools we have at our disposal to help us connect and lead with the people around us and be more resilient. It keeps us humble and it helps us deal with our stress, as I'll talk about. We've never had to be more intentional about finding the funny and tapping into our sense of humor than we do now. I remember at the start of the pandemic a year ago, journalists phoned me up. I did a lot of interviews about humor during the pandemic. And they asked me a question that made me laugh almost every time they asked it. They would ask, is it okay to laugh right now? And my answer was, of course, it's not only okay to laugh right now, it's necessary. We have to be extra intentional about laughing and doing some basic practices to keep up our mental health and resiliency and find the funny in the world, no matter how simple it is. And I responded to them also that we have to remember there's a fundamental difference between laughing during a challenging, even a crisis, versus laughing at that crisis versus laughing to help us cope with a crisis. Those are two very different things. And so I want to remind you that not just now, but even in normal times, our sense of humor is one of the most powerful, underappreciated, underutilized resources we have at our disposal to be more effective in our lives, in our family lives, in our work lives. In ordinary times, I travel the world researching, writing, and speaking about rocking workplaces. And one of the things I've noticed that so many inspiring teams, leaders, and companies have in common is they embrace a spirit of fun. They embrace a spirit of humor in everything they do. And I have a database file of over 1,000 of these just simple little examples, just little gems, I would call them. For example, Shutterfly, the online photo web sharing site. I remember phoning them up years ago with a complaint, and I got the usual automated voicemail response with all those endless options. But then at the end of the options, I got this rather delightful option. If you want to hear all these options again, but in pirate, press 9. Well, who would not choose the pirate option? So I pressed 9. There was a real pirate. "Arr, matey, if you think your package has been lost at high seas, press number 2. And the whole thing was translated into piratese. Like, how beautiful is that? I got off the phone. Remember, I had a complaint with them, but I got off the phone loving these guys. It's kind of like a get out of jail free card when we use our sense of humor with one another, when we brand our business with a sense of humor. It makes us more likable. There's a donut shop, one of my favorite examples too, in Phillipsburg, Pennsylvania, that is home supposedly to the largest chocolate donut in the United States. Now, this is the US we're talking about, so we can only imagine how big this chocolate donut must be. So when you order what they've affectionately called the big chocolate honker, they've created this fun, goofy ritual where they honk an old-fashioned horn, which sends out a signal to all the seniors in the donut shop who they've trained so that all the seniors stop in unison what they're doing when they hear the horn and they all go, honk, 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 honk. It's the stupidest thing you've ever seen. And yet, as with all of these examples, not so stupid. This little ritual saved this mom and pop business. They were on the verge of bankruptcy until they did this, till they started selling the chocolate honker and doing this ritual, because it got them free publicity from all the surrounding states. News crews would come to film the seniors doing this ritual, and it saved their business. And it created a domino effect in their small little team where they just started taking more risks, I think, and doing more outrageous things to connect with one another in their team, in their culture, but also to connect with their customers in more fun ways. And one of my favorite examples of just simple little ways that humor has transformed an entire company is from Argus Industries in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And what I love about Argus is they have this wonderful mantra that I think we should all embrace. And the mantra is this: work is hard enough as it is without making it any harder. So let's work hard. Let's set ambitious goals for ourselves. But hey, let's have a little bit of this fun along the way. And maybe we'll achieve those goals even faster and more successfully than we might otherwise. And hey, why wouldn't we anyways? Because I think companies like Argus get this basic notion that I remind my audiences of all the time, is that work matters, right? It goes way beyond a paycheck. Work affects our physical and mental health, our families, our kids' life, our marriages. It affects who we socialize with, our personal development, our growth. It affects where you live. It affects our time. You may have noticed it's just a wee bit of a time sucker. It's the single biggest use of our waking hours in this short journey called life. And I guarantee you, none of us are going to be sitting on the rocking chair at 103, looking back on our work days, thinking to ourselves, man, if I had to do it all over again, I'd be more of a fun sucker. I'd work in a more soul-sucking, fun-sucking workplace. Nobody would say that. So I think we have to remind ourselves we owe it to each other, to our employees, to our bosses, to our teammates, to our customers, to our souls, to our families, to create as rocking a great workplace as possible, because this sucker matters. So Argus Industries takes that value very seriously. They do all sorts of things. They have something they call the X Games, where they create contests with the back office blue-collar workers and the front office white-collar workers, so that they have to experience each other's jobs in fun, creative competition. So they get to appreciate and learn about each other's work. And it breaks down barriers in a fun, playful way. They have fun meeting rules of the roads. They do fun theme days, dirt simple ones. They do one a year called just Monochromatic Day, where everybody just has to wear some shade of black or white. No colors allowed, just blacks and whites, Monochromatic Day. They have a ritual, and I love this, starting on December 1st, where an employee shows up with a gorilla costume, and he hides somewhere in their manufacturing plant in their office, under people's desks, in closets, waiting to scare the bejesus out of his coworkers, while another colleague secretly videotapes the frightened transaction of all these folks, often big blue-collar guys, going, "Ah!" And then they create this montage video and they show it at their year-end party. And it's just this goofy thing that's become a huge part of their culture. But here's the deal. Argus Industries, and I did an interview a few years ago with the CEO and their CFO on CBC radio, and they were talking about how they have almost a 0% employee turnover rate in the last 10, which is unprecedented. Now, it's not because a gorilla shows up starting on December 1st. Wouldn't that be wonderful if that was the solution to all of our work challenges? It's because, though, the humor reflects their culture. They use humor to build a strong culture, but it also reflects their culture. And they are intentional about culture because Argus and so many rocking workplaces get that simple fact that great cultures don't just happen. You have to be intentional about it, and that culture is the number one driver of success. It is your number one competitive advantage. It affects everything you do. And we know from so many studies that organizations that embrace a spirit of fun, more humor into their workplace, have lower absenteeism rates, lower employee turnover rates, higher productivity, better collaboration, better communication, improved creativity and innovation. I have tons of stats and research studies to back this up in my book, The Humor Advantage, if you want some of the details. But there's study after study after study showing how humor benefits us at a workplace level. It helps reduce presenteeism. Do you know what presenteeism is? It's that phenomenon of people showing up at work, but not necessarily to work. So humor helps us in so many ways at a team and at a company level to be more cohesive and work better, but also just at an individual level as a leader. And I mentioned earlier, we call this leading with laughter. There's a Bell leadership study that found that the number one trait people wanted from their leaders was a strong work ethic and, yes, equally important, a healthy sense of humor. A West Point naval study found that a strong sense of humor was positively correlated to the most effective leaders. We know leaders that share a healthy sense of humor are trusted more. There's another one of my favorite companies, Beryl Health Call Centers. Now, I don't know if you know this about call centers, but in some markets, they have an employee turnover rate of more than 400%. More than 400%. That means I think people are showing up on day one, looking in the window and going, I don't think so. Yet at Beryl, theirs is about 12%. And it starts from their leadership, their CEO, who has a great sense of humor. And the whole company has fun. They have a laugh box where they put funny things in the laugh box. So if you need a break on the call center floor, you just reach for the laugh box. They have artwork from all the employees' kids up on the walls. Their receptionist has the job title, the Director of First Impressions. The Human Resources Manager, and you gotta like this, has the job title, the Queen of Fun and Laughter. They are a phenomenally successful business, and it starts from the top. But here's one thing I want to stress. The CEO of this company is not an extrovert. In fact, he told me not only is he an introvert, he's shy, but that doesn't stop him from creating that environment full of humor and fun. And he knows that he can't hide behind that introverted nature. He has to step out from that and connect with his employees because he understands that's important in building a strong culture. So he does things like chats, video chats, where he answers questions from employees, including just some fun, silly questions. And he wears a goofy hat, pretty good for a shy introvert. He's been known to show up at midnight on the call center floor wearing rollerblades and a matador costume just to connect with employees in a different way. We have to remember a sense of humor has nothing to do with being an extrovert, with being outgoing. It has nothing to do with being funny even all the time. It's about doing things, and this is far more important, I think, in a spirit of fun, embracing a sense of fun rather than trying to be funny. It's about being more human, more real. It's about having a sense of balance, a sense of perspective. It doesn't make our problems go away, but it helps us see things in a more realistic light. It's about laughing at those things you have no control over, which in times of turbulence, where there are lots of leprechauns and we need more leadership. Drinking, remember the drinking game? I just remembered it. We have to find those things that we can't control and laugh at them. And it's also especially from a leadership perspective, but for all of us. It's about laughing at ourselves more. Is it not a truism, after all, that the more seriously a person takes themselves, the less seriously we tend to take that person, because they're taking themselves so bloody seriously that the reality becomes, we're not taking you seriously, bucko, because you're taking yourself so bloody seriously. So it's about lightening up on ourselves. It's about just bringing that lightness to work. There's a difference between being somber and being serious about our work and our customers' needs. Those are not the same thing. And I'm a member of something called the International Group of Humor Studies. So when we talk about this notion of a sense of humor, you really can grow your sense of humor by doing a dirt simple thing, it's been shown. Just practicing looking for the accidentally funny stuff in the world, the unintentionally funny stuff in the world. For example, look for the stuff that's, not supposed to be funny until you sort of pause and do the quizzical golden retriever thing. Things like on warning labels, shower caps with the label that says fits one head only. What are people doing in their hotel showers? Christmas lights for indoor or outdoor use only. Church bulletin boards, don't let worry kill you, let the church help. Or signs, we don't just serve burgers, we serve people. That's a little frightening notion. So look for this stuff. It's everywhere. Start a humor file in your workplace. You can put it on your intranet site. You can share it in a book. Make it a collective activity, but just bring it into your workplace. And I want to really quickly, before Kelly jumps back in here, I know with some questions, touch on just 3 areas we can bring humor into the workplace really effectively. And the first one is just looking for opportunities for rituals and traditions, because that's what helps create a stronger culture. And there's no shortage of rituals and traditions that you can do. Maybe it's a Monday morning kickoff. A lot of my clients do Friday afternoon huddles where they celebrate the 3 best things that everyone experienced in the week, where they highlight any great news, where they welcome new employees, but they turn that into a Friday afternoon ritual. Celebrating those theme days, like International Talk Like a Pirate Day. Coming up is make up your own holiday day in a few weeks. So why not celebrate that or make up your own theme day? There's no shortage of things you can do. Some of my clients, and I love this, I've suggested this to them and they love it, where they do Friday name tag days, where everyone just wears one of those hello, my name is name tags. But every week they ask a different question, just a different fun, goofy question that you have to answer on the name tag. So it just makes it fun. It's a conversation breaker. You get to learn more about your colleagues. Another one of my clients, they do third person Thursdays, where everybody talks about themselves, but in the third person. Hey, Mike loves that idea. Hey, Mike, I'll see you in the meeting later on. So there's no shortage of things. And I've got so many fun examples, but look for opportunities to just engage in those fun rituals and traditions, like the gorilla costume thing that just came out of nowhere. Second key place we need to inject humor into our workplaces anytime we're communicating with one another. That's so important, whether it's through our email messages, whether it's on our intranet sites, whether it's in our Zoom meetings, and especially in our meetings. Meetings are important touch points that should reflect your culture, but also a key area to help build your culture. So make sure you're injecting a lot of fun into your meetings. Open up with a fun icebreaker question. Have everybody come up with their alter ego name title. There's so many things you can do. You can go on the web and you can Google your rock star alter ego name beforehand, and everybody uses that name for the meeting. Have a humor break in the middle of your meeting. We used to do a rumor mill section in our meetings where it was fun to talk about something that was uncomfortable for people. But the way it worked was you had to lean into the table, look up and down, and say, word on the street is, and then share your rumor. And it made it fun and playful to talk about something that might have otherwise been uncomfortable. Do a name in the hat routine where, and you can do this virtually as well, where every time somebody says something pithy or thought-provoking or funny or witty, you get to nominate that person. You say, oh, Kelly, that was hilarious. That was brilliant. I'm putting Kelly's name into the virtual hat. And then you have a little draw at the end of the meeting for a quick prize. So there's all sorts of ways that you can inject a little fun into your meetings. In fact, I know we've got a link for you that has an article on my website that has 130 ideas on how to inject a little more fun into your virtual meetings. And we have to remember too, studies tell us that more humor in our meetings is important. Even a Scientific America study found that the most effective meetings were those meetings that had lots of fun in them, because people are more creative. You get more, this is supposed to be a giant light bulb. Ha plus ha equals aha, which is a whole topic unto itself, and another reason why we need to inject our workplaces with more fun. And then the last area I want to touch on is just, again, the reminder of how powerful humor is in these turbulent times to help us lead, take a drink, to help us lead with laughter and be more resilient and manage our stress. We know humor is a triple threat when it comes to managing stress. It helps us emotionally to shift our emotions. There's a cognitive shift. It changes how we think about something. And there's a physical response. When you laugh, you massage those muscles where you pick up a lot of tension, right? You can tell when people are stressed out. You increase oxygen going to the brain, and oxygen going to the brain, highly recommended at work. That you increase salivary immunoglobulin A, which helps fight respiratory infections. According to a Simon Fraser University study, laughter works faster on our bodies than either Valium or vodka, which you can't always bring to the office, kids. And you gotta like this one. Dr. William Fry suggests that 20 or 30 seconds of good, hearty laughter is the same physical workout as 2 minutes on a rowing machine. So now you know what I do? I just go down to my local gym here in beautiful Canmore and laugh at the people working out. So we know it's good for us. And there are so many dirt simple ways to just laugh, start that humor file, watch more humor, as we were talking about earlier with the sitcoms, create a humor first aid kit, stockpile it with some fun, goofy stuff. It's this, again, when people used to be mad at me at one office I worked in, I would show up wearing this. It's like a get out of jail free card when somebody is upset with you. So create your own humor first aid kit, stockpile it with some fun stuff. I've got these noisemakers I use for virtual meetings all the time. If you want to introduce somebody, or you need a little thinking time, somebody says something weird, something strange happens. Right? So there are all sorts of just simple ways that you can tap into your sense of humor to relax. The second are of tapping into your sense of humor to relax is the power of humor to help reward the positives. We need to reward the positives, but also reward those times when we're struggling, when we need to be pulled out of the dungeon in creative ways. So create some fun rewards in your workplace. And we can talk about that later if you want, Kelly. There's so many simple ideas for things we can do. And then the final are, and this is why I think humor is so powerful, is it helps us reframe our challenges. It reminds us that stress is in the eye of the beholder. It is not the stuff that happens to us, even something huge like this pandemic we're all going through together alone. It's not that causes us stress. It's our interpretation of the stuff that happens to us that is the sole source of stress. Humor is in the eye of the beholder. So if we can practice, and yes, it takes practice, reframing the stuff that happens to us in a funny way, finding the funny, even in those challenging moments, it really can help us powerfully manage the stress and be more resilient, even in very, very simple ways. So with that, Kelly, let's throw it back over to you, and let's get some questions. And
thank you, Mike. That was incredible as always. I mean, you really are the carrot top of workplace humor. Your props are out of this world. Yeah, so I want to encourage people to, if they have questions, to put it in the Q&A. I mean, I guess you could also put it in the chat too. Don't think it really matters, but Q&A works fine. We already got one question in, and it actually ties into a question I was going to ask. So the question from Patrick are, what are your thoughts on doing an April Fool's joke in a multinational through a newsletter? I was going to ask a similar thing about April Fool's. So yeah, perhaps you can answer that.
Right. I assume, but by multinational, you mean it's going out all over the world, Patrick? It's going to other countries. That can be tricky because, as we know, the written word does not smile. So humor is hard to translate sometimes. When you have to be very careful when it's in a newsletter, and when you've got that double whammy of dealing with other cultures, that it might interpret what you think is hilarious in a very, very different way. So I would say go for it, recognizing too that there's a lot of countries around the world that don't really practice April Fool's Day or get it. So you have to know your audience with humor. That's absolutely critical, and use it in a very safe way, because the last thing you want is for people to think, oh, this is, and I've got a whole file of disaster stories of people thinking, this is true. They're actually, and they forgot it was April Fool's Day, and they took what was written at face value, and it led to all sorts of chaos. So just be very careful. My best advice for April Fool's Day is to always do something that, if you can, turns the punchline directly onto you, right? And if you can poke fun at yourself, that's the safest thing you can do. What was your question, Kelly, about?
Well, I mean, as our content writer, I was thinking about perhaps writing a blog post on April Fool's jokes in the virtual office. And then I started to realize I don't even know what this would be. Like, what would an April Fool's joke in a virtual office be? And I think a lot of it would probably have to do with video. And I think some of my colleagues were talking about, you know, having someone else in your video or things related to that. Do you have any thoughts?
I do, because I was going to write a similar thing. I mean, there's some very simple things. There's some subtle things you can do, like putting something just very goofy in the background for people to see, right? It could be really subtle like that, to something weird, odd, or enlisting a family member to come in behind you and do something a little bit weird, a little bit goofy. Changing your name if you're on Zoom to something playful, to something fun, just to see if anybody notices, or give you a new job title and see if anybody notices. You know, make yourself CEO for the meeting on April Fool's Day, just see if anybody notices that. A couple of, you know, you have to be a little technically proficient, I guess, to do a few of those things, but a couple of my friends have suggested when somebody steps away from their screen, you take a screenshot of their virtual background, then you make it your virtual background. So in your next meeting, when they come back on, it looks like you're in their office, you're in their kitchen, because you've essentially stolen their virtual background. Another one of my friend, and he did this very cleverly. He recorded himself peeking into the camera from different angles, just coming in on the side. And then he used that video as his background. So it looks like him coming in behind him over his shoulder, to peek in over his shoulder. So there's some goofy technical stuff you can do like that. There's some companies, you can do something crazy like this too. There are some companies around the world where you can actually rent a goat or a llama to attend your video meeting. So you could not tell anybody, and just suddenly a llama shows up as one of your meeting participants in your meeting. So there's things like that. I forgot to get it here. I'll have to get it. I'll be right back. Here's something else you can do. I've got my fake butt shorts on. So you do it with a straight face, and you just, you know, sorry folks, I have to go get something. And then one more thing I talk about, this is something I have done for a few, is when I've had to step out for a little washroom break, I've just substituted myself in with my mock mic, my fake mic number 2, just to see. And sometimes, you know what's amazing, if there's enough people on the call, people don't notice for like 5 minutes that it's not me anymore. So there are a few things you can do. A little goofy. I should do the I'll do my plastic cup practical joke that some of you on the call I know have seen, but this works as well. All you do is get a cheap little plastic cup, hide it up under your armpit, and then you're in a virtual meeting and you talk about how your neck is so stiff. You woke up with a sore, awful neck, and it's just awful. And then you say, you know, I'm going to try a maneuver. I've been seeing this physiotherapist. I'm just going to try a little maneuver my physio's been doing on me and see if I can't work this out here. Oh. And see, if you do this effectively enough, Kelly, you would not believe how quickly the blood will drain from people's faces.
I love it. I love it. Okay, thank you. I'm very inspired to write this blog post now. There's a few other questions. Sarah has 2 questions, so maybe I'll put them in the same question to you. She wants to know, how are your humor tips different for small organizations, like less than 20 people? And if you have any advice for bringing humor into the workplace when your coworkers or bosses are more serious?
Yes, excellent questions. You know, in terms of the first question, whether it's a small business or a big business, it can be just as powerful and just as effective. And in fact, I think small businesses have huge advantages over big businesses in this area because you're more flexible, you're more adaptable, you can do things quickly on the fly. And the things that you do can have that much bigger an impact because you're so small, because you're already a cohesive team. It becomes way easier in some regards to do some of this stuff. So I have found in my travels that very often the smaller businesses that really, really do some awesomely creative stuff with this. And now, in terms of the second question, what, and I get this a lot, well, what do you do when your boss is so serious and your coworkers are so serious? And partly, I think it's selling the importance of this. It's reminding people that this really does matter and it pays off. And I think sharing examples to show that you're not talking about anything that's going to harm your reputation, just the opposite. You're not talking about being unprofessional, just the opposite. You're talking about being more professional. You're talking about connecting with your customers or clients in an even more effective way. You're talking about increasing sales and productivity. You're talking about improving your culture with the safe addition of humor. That's going to help everybody. And sharing example after example of how businesses have done it so that it becomes concrete for them. So they see it's not just airy-fairy, it's not just pie in the sky or theoretical. It really does make a difference. So that's one of my suggestions. The second one is just start slowly. Start with some simple things so they can see that you can do this. And so start, for example, with just a simple ritual or tradition. Maybe it's that Friday afternoon ritual I mentioned. Making sure your meetings set that tone, right? Meetings are so important for creating that psychologically safe space and sending the message that it's okay to have a little bit of humor. So making sure you do try out some things in your meetings to set that lighter tone. I think that's so important too.
That's a really good point, is using the meetings as the opportunity to be humorous. The other question I want to ask is, I mean, obviously at Thought Farmer here, we make intranet software. How can, so I get how to be funny in a meeting, but how can we be funny on our virtual platforms, whether it's intranet software, whether it's our instant messaging platforms? Do you have any advice on how people can be funny and humorous there?
Yeah, in fact, I just did a video a couple of weeks ago about 10 ways to add safe humor to any email message. And it's very similar, whether we're talking email or instant messaging, some of those same things apply. So I'd invite people to look up that video if you're interested in this topic, but there's lots of simple, safe ways. Now, remember, here's the guideline that I do caution people with. Anytime, if it's your intranet site or message, treat it like it's a permanent document because you never know. So only include safe humor that you wouldn't mind if your grandmother read it to all of your employees with your CEO sitting in the front row there. If you're okay with that, then it's probably okay to include that humor in whatever it is you're writing. But there's still lots of opportunities in an intranet site, I think, to make it fun. In fact, to me, the intranet site is just kind of the virtual lunchroom in some ways, right? It's the virtual meeting space. So looking for all those same opportunities that we might do in a physical office. So creating a humor bulletin board on your intranet site, doing shout outs for one another. I just did a video last week about how the Improv Everywhere troupe did this cool thing in New York a few years ago, where they just set up a lectern and a microphone, loudspeaker, and they encourage people to come up and just say something nice publicly, right? And it was a hoot. Everybody just loved this. So I talked about creating a say something nice space in your workplace. So do that on your intranet site. Have a say something nice board where people can do shout outs to each other, to customers, where you can post rave reviews from your customers, or just say something nice to spread a little positivity. You can celebrate those theme days. They're all on my website. There's always a theme day. Every day there's at least a couple different wacky theme days. So you post them on your intranet site. Hey, everybody, happy Answer Your Cat's Question Day. Doing fun polls, fun questions on your intranet site is a great way to engage people in a fun way. You could do a Friday feedback question, so it becomes part of your routine. So every Friday, you post an interesting, quirky, like just make it fun, right? An interesting, quirky question to get to know each other with, like we did at the beginning of this. You know, what's your favorite sitcom that everyone's watching right now? Who's your favorite James Bond? Are you a cat or dog person? What's your, you know, whatever. There's an endless supply of goofy questions you could pose to one another. Posting some fun, even fun videos, creative scavenger hunts I've seen companies do on their internet sites. So just thinking about it in different ways, but really thinking about your internet site as your social connector, as your social hub. It can be a really powerful tool if you use it effectively.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Those are great examples. I love the idea of polls. We talk a lot about that as well, as using polls to engage your internet users. So that's fantastic. I have a really good question here. Well, it's a question from Jan, and I think this is really important. You sort of touched on it earlier, but he wants to know, what if your humor offends someone, and what if someone's humor offends you?
Oh, that question. Let me draw you a line where the humor, let me draw you a line where that proverbial humor line is. I'm going to draw it right here. There we go. I don't know if everybody can see that, but the line kind of looks something like that. So this is a huge topic. Here's my Reader's Digest version of the answer to this question. Of course, we have to be respectful and be aware of the power of words in our language in the workplace, especially. Of course, we have to practice hopefully positive, what I would call safe humor. So we need to make sure we're avoiding sexist, racist humor. The way I look at it is that's just not funny, right? So we have to be very careful with the humor we're using. The humor should reflect our culture. And here's the deal, I ask this same question to all these companies all over the world that are known for their humor, that have high levels of humor in their organization. And so I always pose the question to them, well, what do you do? Well, what do you do when you put out the humor welcome mat? Don't people start getting offended and you have all these issues? And they look at me like I have three heads. Every single company has said, it's not an issue. It's never an issue, because you get the kind of humor that I think reflects your culture. So we have a very respectful, positive, trusting culture. And so our humor reflects that. And if there is the occasional misstep, we make sure we don't punish everyone by bringing down the fun sucker police. We will have a conversation. We will have a conversation with that one person and just say, maybe you crossed the line there a little bit. Oh, yeah, I know. And in fact, on that note, there's a study in the International Group of Humor Studies that examined the role of the proverbial office joker. And they found that the office joker, that proverbial character, played an incredibly important role in terms of boosting people's morale, speaking uncomfortable truths to the leadership team, in resharing stories that help strengthen the culture, all these different roles that the office joker played. And the CEOs, and I love this, when they were asked about the office joker, their response was always the same. Yeah, you know what? Okay, there's the occasional time where Bob oversteps. But you know what? The benefits of what Bob brings to our workplace culture so outweigh the occasional misstep, that we don't let that get in the way of us bringing more humor and fun and lightness into our workplace. And if Bob oversteps, he's usually the first one to know he oversteps. And we'll just have, again, a conversation with Bob. So, I think it's just obviously being aware. Your humor is going to vary depending on the context, the situation you're in, the nature of the relationship you have with the people around you at work, right? And it's one thing, you know your coworker for the last 20 years and you've established a certain level of trust and rapport, then of course your humor is probably going to be a little different than with a first-time customer or a brand new employee. So of course the audience matters again. But the second part of that equation too, it reminds me that we have a responsibility as speakers in terms of how we're communicating in a hopefully positive, safe way for the most part. But we also have a responsibility as the listener. And I mean listener with a capital L. When we're reading an email, when we're reading something on an internet post where we kind of go, ooh, I'm a little bit offended by that. There's a responsibility of the listener, I think, too, to not immediately assume that this person was being a jerk, or not to immediately assume that this came from a really bad place, to give the person the benefit of the doubt. If you're upset, take the person aside and talk to them and explain why you didn't think that was very funny. But to me, there is also that just as important responsibility of the listener to not necessarily assume the worst possible motivation anytime something like that happens. So I'm not sure if that's answering the question very well, but I just know in so many workplaces with so much research that it rarely is an issue, and we can't use that. That's the huge danger that just gets me so depressed, is that we use that as an excuse to do nothing. We use that as an excuse to not bring any joy or fun or humor into our workplaces. And that's far more dangerous than the concern of the occasional misstep.
I love that answer. I think that was very, very well said. Yeah, I mean, humor is not canceled. And I think a lot of people worry this day and age that what they're going to say is going to come across wrong. So I loved your answer on that. So I want to I think we're pretty much done with our Q&A. Just a quick question. Mark has asked, where can we get that fun sound maker?
The fun sound maker, these I got from, and I've got a whole bunch of them. They have a ton of range of noises. I got them from trainerswarehouse.com. So if you go to trainerswarehouse.com, there's also, as Kelly said, there's so many. If you Google different places, there's all sorts of, for a Bonehead Play of the Month award, I used to give this out in one company. There's all sorts of places where you can get fun little props to add to your meetings.
Okay, thank you so much. We wanted to talk quickly. We're going to give away your book, but can you tell us about your book quickly?
Well, I would be honored to. Thank you, Kelly. Yes, it's just hot off the press as of really this week. The Jerk-Free Workplace: How You Can Take the Lead to Create a Happier, More Inspiring Workplaces. It's all about people stepping up as leaders. And again, what I started this conversation with, the notion that we all have the ability to be a leader on our teams, a leader in our workplace. And the more leaders you create on your teams and your workplaces, the more successful you're going to be at creating a more fun, inspiring, positive workplace culture. So there's lots of humor in the book. It talks about workplace culture for sure, but it's very much about taking personal responsibility and accountability to step up and be a true leader on your team. The measure of true leadership isn't creating more followers, it's creating more leaders. And so I honestly believe that if you want a jerk-free workplace, we need to get as many people enlisted as possible in that job of contributing to a positive team, contributing to a positive workplace culture.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so let's give away your book. You have a fun little wheel that you were going to spin.
I do. Let me share the screen. Just so smooth. Oh, hey, let's just before I share the wheel, just to really quickly close this off. I talked about finding the humor in the world. Thank goodness there has been so much humor too that people have shared during this pandemic, right? Because there's nothing normal about this new normal. So I just love that some of the humor, how come I cannot share it? How come I cannot?
I can see it.
There we go, right? So all the humor around virtual meetings, how they've become modern seances. Or this, I love this. We talked about the practical jokes earlier, Kelly. This husband of this woman, every time she goes on to a Zoom call with her business, he will dress up in a goofy costume and just appear subtly in the background and pretend to work. It just cracks me up. I love that idea. Forgetting to mute is the new reply all. We've all had to learn how to train our pets to behave in this virtual world. I love this too. When the rush for certain products went on at the start of the pandemic, this music store owner, he got very concerned that there would be a rush on accordions. So he decided he better do something about this and limit accordion purchases to 2 per people. And of course, yes, face coverings. Suitable in a bank, unsuitable. Isn't it amazing? A year ago, we would have gotten arrested for going into a bank with a mask. Now we get arrested for not going in. And the creative ways people are taking advantage of this, right? Best time to get braces. I love that. There's so many examples of fun, creativity. Here's the llama thing I was talking about. See, down in the lower center square there. There you can sign up a goat or a llama for your meeting. They said a mask and gloves were enough to go to the grocery store. They lied. Everyone else had clothes on. So there's so many ways, so much humor that's still out there. So yes, let's go to the wheel now to give away some door prizes. We're giving away 5 copies of the Jerk-Free Workplace, ebook versions of the Jerk-Free Workplace. So drum roll, please. The first lucky winner is Jay Siluck. I hope I'm pronouncing your name there. Congratulations, Jay. And our second winner.
You should almost share the screen because it's a really cute wheel.
Risha Rose. Congratulations, Risha. And our third winner. And by the way, this is great for your meetings. You can also put in subjects to talk about. You can use it in all sorts of creative ways. Our next winner, Shay Haverstock. And our next lucky winner, Matija Melnar A. Tembal. I hope I'm probably slaughtering your name. My apologies. And our last winner of the Jerk-Free Workplace is Sharon McLean. Congratulations, Sharon. So we have the names there. I'm gonna copy these names so that I will have them. There we go. Just in case. Back live TV. There we go. All right.
Okay, thank you so much, Mike. This has been so much fun. I hope our audience had as much fun too. If you guys want to learn more about Mike and all of his humorous antics, you can go to his website. I think it's mikekerr.com. And then if you want to learn more about Thought Farmer, you can visit us at thoughtfarmer.com. And I just want to leave with someone in our chat has just said the most amazing quote, which I think is perfect to conclude the webinar with. And his name is Dolce. He says, Mark Twain said, against the assault of laughter, nothing can stand.
Yes, so true.
So I love that. So yes, again, thank you, Mike, for being here with us today. And thank you for everyone who attended. This was a lot of fun. So have a happy St. Patrick's Day. And we'll see you next time.
Cheers. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I wish you much laughter, much fun. Remember, if you live each and every day as though it were your last, sooner or later, you'll be right.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Kelly. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Thank you.